Welcome to this Setup in Abu Dhabi webinar done in collaboration with Abu Dhabi DED and some of the great people connecting here with us, the speakers. I'll do some formal introductions from our side, from Creative Zone. Welcome to this webinar again. And yeah, I think we can get started with some formal introductions. I would like to welcome our speakers today. We have Karim El Sirafi, Managing Partner of Modus Capital. Karim, thank you so much for joining us today. Obadiah Aiton, Director of Dhabi Holding Company as well. Obadiah, thank you for joining us. Ryan Adams, Managing Partner of Raha Beach Ventures, and Victor Keriakos, Founder and CEO of Dunes Ventures. Ryan and Victor, again, thank you so much. And honestly, it's such a pleasure to sit with you. I think we have an incredible panel of very senior people and involved in anything to do with venture capital, entrepreneurship, startups, and supporting the startups in Abu Dhabi and the UAE. So maybe I think we can get started. Maybe Victor, I can get started with you. I mean, the main topic of today is build your business venture in Abu Dhabi, and you know how is Abu Dhabi positioning itself as a place for supporting startups and entrepreneurs to launch themselves. So let's start with the big picture. Why Abu Dhabi? Why is it that Abu Dhabi is becoming an attractive destination, and what are some of the initiatives that the public and the private sector are sort of jointly putting together for supporting startups and entrepreneurs launch themselves from Abu Dhabi?
Okay, thanks, Lorenzo, and hello, everyone. So why Abu Dhabi from a macro perspective? I think if you're a founder or looking to set up your business, you might consider different perspectives, but two main things pop out. One is the lifestyle that you want to have, and two is the business environment that you want to be involved in. And I think to date, Abu Dhabi has been doing quite a lot of efforts when it comes to those two sectors. So from a lifestyle perspective, the city is very central as a location, easy to live in, good healthcare, good schooling, all of that stuff. So that's taken care of in a very good way. And then the other component is on the business perspective. And from a business perspective, again, as a founder, you want to be in a place where it's strategically located, given that you need to work with different people from different places. You want to have a place where it's easy to set up. And today, it's very easy now to set up your business in Abu Dhabi. There's different free zones, there's different outlets for you, different banks, all of that. Then the third component is, am I surrounded with investors? I think access to funding is a core pillar that is, at the end of the day, today Abu Dhabi is being positioned as the capital of capital. We have over 55 GPs set up at ADGM. So there are a lot of investors that you can reach out to, institutional ones and private ones. There's a great network that you can access. So when you're coming to a city from abroad, it's a cosmopolitan city, you'll find people from your nationality that you might connect, and it's easy to connect with those people and beyond. So because a lot of people are expat and they're used to that. So it's easy access to the network. And then, of course, talent is also accessible, whether locally or if you want to bring in people. It's very easy now to do visas, golden visas for developers and all of that. So all of these things are coming really nicely together, and they're accelerating in a very high velocity. So just to take a look back, 7 years ago, I was managing an accelerator in Abu Dhabi called Flat 6 Labs. At the time, there was just that accelerator, and Start AD was starting. And ADGM was started to get going on the fintech space. And today, if you look within this 5 years, now you have substantial growth from VC funding, from venture builders, from incubators, accelerators, from, you name it, the infrastructure is there and it's growing fast. So I think that kind of summarizes why someone that is living abroad might want to consider Abu Dhabi as a place to start and scale his company.
Excellent, some really good points there. Maybe Karim, from your side, you're also quite involved in the whole incubation and acceleration of businesses, as well as Ryan and Obedia. But passing on to you, Karim, staying on that topic a little bit on why Abu Dhabi and a lot of the support that is coming out from the public and the private sector partnerships. What would be sort of your thoughts on this?
Yeah, sure. So one, the beaches are also very nice. So I think that's definitely, when referring to lifestyle, they're really great in Abu Dhabi. So public-private partnerships, absolutely. I'll use just briefly Modus as an example. So for those who are not familiar, Hub 71 is essentially an ecosystem enabler. They're out of ADGM, and they essentially support entrepreneurs in getting access to regulators, funding, corporates, etc. And they were extremely innovative as a government organization to have a public-private partnership with us, for example. So we are, what we do is we do venture building, right? So think incubation, acceleration, kind of like all mashed up into one with a little bit longer life cycle. And this kind of tells you that the ecosystem is, even at a governmental or a quasi-governmental level, is inherently innovative, right? For them to be one of the first, or actually the first government, backed institution to do a public-private partnership with something that is fairly new in the region. 2 years ago, people didn't really know what venture building was. I think this is kind of a testament to the way that they kind of, the way that the government looks at, both innovation as an ecosystem to develop, and then actually within themselves as institutions. I think a couple of other things is you see a lot of, let's say, for example, the regulators. The regulators are creating, these committees of private sector, leadership, entrepreneurs, et cetera, to help give them the right type of feedback and data so they can create an environment that allows innovation to flourish, right, without having too tight of constraints on the regulation. Because the best way to manage or to establish regulation is to let the private market kind of develop it and let it run in the private market. So it's a smooth flowing, it's providing the actual type of support that the market needs. And then from there, you look at what the risks associated are, and then you kind of begin putting in the right types of control mechanisms as a regulator, right? And this is exactly what what DED, what others very specific ministries are doing, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, et cetera. And this is another great way that the institutions, the governmental institutions, are actually connecting with and having types of partnerships with the private sector.
Excellent. I'd like to spend a bit more time later on the discussion on these topics of regulation and incentives. I think there's a lot for us to discuss, given the new sort of corporate tax introduced and so on. But the question will be around the issue of, is regulation good enough? Are we flexible enough when it comes to incentivizing people, or are we making it a little bit more cumbersome when it comes to the new compliance, AML, ESR, UBO regulations that were introduced? We're trying to balance all of this when it comes to regulation, and let's spend a little bit on that a bit later. Maybe from you, Ryan, I want to twist this question around. Now we're saying, what is it Abu Dhabi has to offer? But what if we think it the other way around? What is it that Abu Dhabi is interested in? What kind of startups or what kind of investors is Abu Dhabi looking at? Maybe we can say, is everybody welcome, or is Abu Dhabi more interested in certain type of entrepreneurs, or certain type of startups or investors?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for the invitation to participate today. Really excited to be here and speak with you all. When it comes to what the UAE or what Abu Dhabi is looking for, I think we're actually kind of in a unique situation here. You're talking about a population that's 86% expatriate, right? You have a large majority of people who live here that come from different countries. They have different backgrounds, different perspectives, different faiths, and really different needs. The idea is that necessity is the father of invention, right? And we live in an environment and a culture where because of this diverse environment, because of the climate in which we live, you are seeing ideas sprout up in this environment that you may not see elsewhere. And as a result, we're seeing innovative companies, innovative ideas coming to life. They're being nurtured by these ecosystems that exist in Hub 71, as Kareem mentioned, by Department of Economic Development, DED, with the Competitive Office of Abu Dhabi. So the idea is that because of this diverse environment, because of this unique, challenging climate that we exist in, if you're able to thrive here, you're going to do well. You're going to do well in this region and perhaps globally as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Ryan. Some good points there. Maybe passing to you, Obadiah, some of your takeaways on these topics. And also, I know slowly we're going to start drifting into the VC fund side of things and reaching to family offices. How do we go about raising capital? But a little bit linking these two topics now with you.
Yeah, I think let's state the obvious here. Most people, when they think of the UAE, think of Dubai. I'm going to go and be an entrepreneur and set up my business in Dubai. Now, Abu Dhabi hasn't really been known for young SMEs, entrepreneurs to go and start your new life. So that's something that Abu Dhabi has changed dramatically in the last 2 years, really since pandemic times. It's now more believable. There's this path that you can see from start to finish in Abu Dhabi, and that was something that was never there before. It was somewhat there in Dubai because it was a heavier consumer market. I always say the biggest differentiator between Dubai and Abu Dhabi is Dubai is very heavily on the B2C side. Abu Dhabi is very much on the B2B and B2G side. However, Abu Dhabi is building, ADGM is expanding, the population will get there. And eventually we can start calling Abu Dhabi a B2C market. Now we're getting more people like Ryan, Kareem, Victor, all starting accelerators, incubators to help grow some of these smaller companies, because sometimes it's not easy to navigate in Abu Dhabi. Think of Abu Dhabi as a ginormous corporate, and they're split up into subsectors. The sovereigns are now differentiating themselves. You've got Mubadala going into G42 to M42 to Injazat. You're seeing all these different vehicles now appear. Now, as a startup, it's always been quite intimidating to approach a lot of these big corporates because you're so young. So I think the DED, all the different Abu Dhabi government sectors are working together how to create more liquidity between both of them. And I think you don't get that in Dubai, for example. You don't get that kind of small town collaboration, how we can all win together, because the SME sector is so important to Abu Dhabi. We all know the big sovereigns, we know ADNOC, we know the big names, but the SME sector is kind of what's next. And with the better regulation, we're getting in some of the big names from around the world. I mean, we had Ray Dalio's family office set up in Abu Dhabi, which will draw huge amounts of American talent to the region. And that's good for us. Why? Because as SMEs in Abu Dhabi, we get to see some of the biggest names from around the world set up in our town, and we can learn from them. So I think I won't push on to funding just yet because that's a whole different paragraph, but I just wanted to comment on what everybody else was talking about, why Abu Dhabi opposed to Dubai. And that's the obvious question. I'm sorry, it is. Why Dubai or Abu Dhabi? And I'm trying to push people towards Abu Dhabi because there's more opportunity there. There's less, in a nice way, leaders in the private sector there yet, but there will be in the next 2 or 3 years. So it's your chance, while the queue is quite short, to get your name heard in Abu Dhabi. Dubai is a little bit more saturated, it's very glitzy and glamour. There's lots of, names on Sheikh Zayed Road and things going on. Abu Dhabi is a little bit more subdued, but it will get there.
Yeah. I've seen firsthand the level of support and attention that they're giving to those that are coming in, that are new to the country, and they come with a good proposal, with a good idea. I've seen from the offices of all the government entities how they're willing to navigate and help startups and entrepreneurs. Maybe you touched upon a little bit on the issue of sectors and what industries. Maybe Victor, going back to you, what sectors do we see would drive better from Abu Dhabi? Are we talking about what is the best bet, let's say, for startups and entrepreneurs. And I would say also for all the attendees, we have over 150 people connected. Feel free to start putting your questions on the Q&A section of the app or on the chat function. Let's see if our chat function is open with our tech team, but feel free to the attendees, start putting your question there, and we're going to try to read them as we go along through today. So Victor, on the sectors, which sectors do we see with the biggest potential of growth to be launched from Abu Dhabi?
So I think one of the priority sectors are the ones that build on the existing industrial infrastructure. So today in Abu Dhabi, you have the Abu Dhabi Inc., right? These are large organizations built in Abu Dhabi. So you have oil and gas, you have real estate, you have the government. All of these entities, the telecommunication, are looking for innovation through open innovation. So that's a good place to start. So that would be more for B2B type of companies, catering, or B2B2C type of companies, and that's an easy access to the market. Now, not only that, but through the partnership with the DED, as you know, we work very closely with them. They are actually, the DED, which is the Department of Economic Development, is actually trying to enable these connections. So today we have, they rolled out the Abu Dhabi Champion programs, which is a great program where they worked with 4 large corporations, Aldar, Ittihad, Paper Mill, and the Aluminium entity, to allocate part of their procurement towards SMEs. So not only is so the SME doesn't have to go directly now to speak and go through a procurement process. No, the DED has established a program that will allocate that budget for selected SMEs that are based in Abu Dhabi. So that tells you about, not only is it it's a priority sector, but at this, these are all priority sectors, but at the same time, the government is getting involved to support that. You have that on one angle. Then you have the government itself. So through the entity called DGS, DGS, which is the Department of Government Support, has a goal to unlock procurement deals from the government to the SME sector with a set target that is very substantial. So you see, if you're a startup or an SME, then that's an easy way for you to kind of have a entity in Abu Dhabi and leverage these programs. In addition, there's a lot of programs running individually through the corporates like Aldar. They have Manassa Scale Up. There's quite a lot of these programs, and that's an easy access to the market.
Are we saying, Victor, and maybe I can pass this question to Ryan as well, that Abu Dhabi is a good place for one to launch a global entity to operate from Abu Dhabi, but to be catering for a wider audience and to be reaching out an international market? Maybe Ryan, you can answer that.
Sure. So back in 2021, there was essentially a vision established by the UAE government aiming to transition the economy into more of a knowledge-based economy. And in order to do that, they began promoting innovation, research and development, essentially strengthening the regulatory framework in certain key sectors and encouraging high-value adding sectors to transition into the UAE or in Abu Dhabi. I think the ultimate idea is that by doing this, they'll be improving the country's business environment and likely increase the attractiveness to foreign investment. Abu Dhabi especially, I think, has been doing quite well in this area. And as a result, been supporting a few different areas, like artificial intelligence is one. To give you an example, the Emirate has actually set up the Mohammed bin Zayed University of Artificial Intelligence. I think this is the world's first graduate level research-based university. And what's interesting is that you'll see companies begin to actively implement AI across various sectors like healthcare, transportation, finance, and more. And in this supportive environment that exists here in Abu Dhabi and in the UAE, because of regulatory sandboxes that exist, you're able to develop these ideas in a relatively safe space And once they, achieve some sort of critical mass, or they seem to receive some sort of traction, you begin to expand them, beyond just the UAE, but into the region, and of course, globally. There's a few other areas that Abu Dhabi especially is nurturing. In fintech is a huge one. ADGM has been a huge proponent, a huge champion of fintech, and they're dealing with digital payments, blockchain technology, AI-driven financial services. These areas are critical not only for us here locally, but worldwide. They're serving a purpose of closing a gap or solving a need. We're also seeing renewable energy and sustainability. We're seeing health tech is a big one, especially post-pandemic. Telemedicine, AI and diagnostics, digital health platforms are some of the key areas of focus. Agritech is huge. I mentioned earlier the arid climate that exists here in the UAE. There's a real challenge in producing farming that can deliver quality food at a reasonable price. I think we're also seeing space technology, right? You see the Hope probe successful mission to Mars. As a result of that, we're seeing innovation in space, and it's not just here in the UAE, but it's in partnerships with entities global. I think the last thing I want to touch on here is that even if you don't fall under one of those key sectors that are receiving investment to not only solve a need here in Abu Dhabi or UAE, but to grow globally, is that you're also able to be outside of the sector, and because of the nurturing environment that Abu Dhabi and the UAE provide, you're able to be successful as well. So, as an example, one of our portfolio companies, Allwork, we were recently selected to present on campus at MIT Innovation Spotlight, and we were enabled to explain how we're reimagining resumes and how we're helping underserved populations to find meaningful work. And we wouldn't be able to do this without the support that we've received with the UAE government and the private industry that exists here.
Great, Ryan, some good points there. I can see a lot of questions related to incubation and accelerators and the support that startups get. Maybe to our tech team, if they can include the link of our setup in Abu Dhabi / section where we list the different accelerators and incubators. There's a lot of good material there. Of course, you can reach out to these fine people, gentlemen on the call on LinkedIn and reach out to them and see how if they can potentially help. But there's a lot of initiatives and institutions involved in acceleration and incubation. I think there's the domain that the attendees can go. But you absolutely agree, Ryan. Some good points there. Especially, I like the part of agri-tech, given the importance of food security for the Middle East, with what's happening in how this region is growing. The issue of having food security for the future growth of this population is a big topic. I've seen that anybody that comes around with proposals that talk about how can we secure the food of the future, it's very welcomed. Karim, going back to you on what is it that you look when you're looking at DEX and startups? What is it what tips can we be giving to people looking at this? What really raises our attention when it comes to the specifics that we're looking into these DEX and the type of projects that people put forward?
Yeah, so it's a really great question. One of the things that we look for, I think because it coincides with our model, is what we see here is we see a lot of there's a lot of really, really great talent, right? And they're essentially an emerging innovation ecosystem, because that's really the stage that Abu Dhabi is at. There's a lot of really great talent that that have identified problems or ways that they can create value added for the industry that they're specialized in, right? And what we see a lot of individuals who, let's say, worked at a corporate for 5-7 years, and through that experience have identified a problem, and they have an idea to solve that problem, right? But they've never been an entrepreneur before, right? And this is where it gets kind of scary, right? You have to raise money, the financial insecurity associated with it. It's very high risk, right? It's one of the highest risk asset classes. And what is great about Abu Dhabi is that through programs that DED is setting up or it has set up, with ADGM and the programs that they have, Start AD, Hub 71, and even the corporates, there is an opportunity for these individuals to kind of make that jump and take that leap. So for us, what we see is we see a lot of opportunity to create value added that, contributes to either, business or consumer pain points. And you see these individuals really needing that type of support. So for us, what we really look at is the individual and their domain expertise, right? Because that domain expertise takes a long time to develop, right? As does building a startup company or a tech company. But when you have people, like such as, us 4 or 5 on the call that have kind of been there and done that, and they have that experience. Now they have a soft landing pad. They have a framework through incubation, acceleration, venture building, et cetera, to be able to have this safety net and actually make the jump and make the move. So for us, what we're really looking at is what we see is, not so much the specifics of the market opportunity. Yes, when you look at it from a business case, is this market big enough? Is the pain big enough? Is the solution valuable enough? And is this scalable enough for it to generate VC level returns, right? Because in the end, that's we're managing LP's money and looking for returns. But the expertise of the individuals, I think that's really what's key.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Obedia, on your side, you have immense opportunity, experience in reaching out to family offices and VC funds. I understand you tend to work more with those that have already launched, that they can show a track record, that they're looking for perhaps their Series A, Series B, and take them to the next level. What's your thoughts on working with those type of entities? What is the activity that you've seen happening in the UAE and in Abu Dhabi in that space?
So I think I'll tell you a little story about an agri-tech company in Abu Dhabi. Now, I made an angel investment this year. It's not yet public, but it will be, into an agriculture startup. Now, the struggle we have sometimes in the UAE is, as I told you before, some of these groups are so big. There's lovely accelerators, incubators, and you have the odd seed fund. And again, there's more coming to the region year by year. Now, when you're looking out for other, you have successful business owners, successful family conglomerates that are wealthy, and they may have, a huge amount of success in the agriculture sector. So with what we did with this startup was we actually approached this brand new entity in Abu Dhabi. They're called E20. They're brand new. Now, the struggle we have is they're corporate. So they have this corporate mentality of when they look at a young company, they're like, audit, existing cap table, you're not yet profitable. They're looking at you like you should be a big company, but you're not. And this is what I think a lot of the organizations in Abu Dhabi are realizing. When you look underneath, the companies will be at a growth stage. They will be profitable, but we still need a few more years yet. And you need some of these entities to start taking the risk. So how we solved this problem is we came to a negotiation of, an audit. We're not going to pay for the big four names, and the big four aren't going to look at us, but we found a medium audit firm that can run a good audit on the business so that the investment manager was satisfied. Tick in the box, right? Number one. Number two is, because there's no name on the cap table, it was filled by angels, we need references from the local ecosystem of how satisfied customers are, how satisfied big players in the Abu Dhabi ecosystem are. So we got some of the big farms, some of the big vertical farms to come to a meeting where we had the investment committee. There were lots of other people there just throwing these references of how important this piece of technology is for the agriculture sector. So all I'm saying is each scenario is so different, but you have to go a little bit above and beyond to think of ideas of how to satisfy the investment manager. I mean, look at Kareem. He just said he manages other people's money. He has a responsibility, right? to make the right decisions from a risk perspective. So it's up to you as a startup founder, especially in Abu Dhabi, is to work with the organization, work with the family groups that are very successful to lower the risk, bring in more references, satisfy their needs, and come to a certain medium. So this is kind of a challenge that I've been trying to get through for the last year. And I've seen now 4 startups in the UAE raise anywhere from 1 to 5 million tickets from a family conglomerate, just purely by grafting, finding ideas, how to build more references around an investment opportunity. And the issue we have a lot of the time is pricing. How does a family conglomerate in Abu Dhabi price an amazing fintech company that says that they're worth 50 million? You know, and they're looking for a lead in that round. So there are still some challenges, but it's up to, as I said, the founders and the local ecosystem to try and get over those challenges. But what I'm seeing in the last year from the private wealth space is more money is coming in. I mean, Canoe family office in Bahrain and Saudi, they've just hired a female CEO from 500 startups, right? So they're trying to bring people on the inside who can do the diligence on these startups, who can price these startups as best as they can, again, to be part of the ecosystem. So I'm just trying to feed some positivity into a lot of the people in this chat to say things are changing, things are getting better, and there are alternative ways of funding startups.
So we're saying that the space is growing. There's more opportunities for startups to reach out to these type of institutions, yet I think we need to be more creative on how we try to reach out to these people. What is the kind of deals that we're trying to put together in order to get, because even from this call, you can see the eagerness from people wanting to reach out to start to incubators, accelerators, to get that support. But it feels that the support is not as big as the demand for this, right? So maybe your final thoughts on that, Obadiah.
It's all I'm saying is for all the startups hustling in Abu Dhabi, I would enter a lot of conversations around business. It's very easy. I mean, 80% of the UAE is run by these family conglomerates. So you need to find a way to integrate yourself no matter what. If you enter the discussions around business, they kind of see an investment as operational expenditure. They're not used to being a cap table investor yet, but they're very used to funding new businesses. So you've got to kind of go in with a certain language and a certain approach that, hi, Mr. Family Conglomerate, I can do a lot for you. I can provide a lot of value. I can save you time and cost here, here, and here. Believe in me, try me. And then their attitude is, right, now how do we fund this and make it bigger and better? So it's just going in. If you go in with the lingo of, you know, we've raised a seed round, we've got this name on this name, we're priced at this, we're now raising a safe note, you've already lost the train of communication. So I think kind of pick the VC community and completely separate it from the kind of the family group sphere. One family group sphere is very business, and VC is very driven on pricing, you know, value add to, you know, their mandate as such. But I'll let Kareem and Ryan and Victor answer all of that.
Great, thank you for that, Obadiah. And Victor, another topic that we were discussing off the record before jumping on this call was this issue of the cultural sort of approach that one needs to observe when entering this market. And I think you had some good concepts and a lot of experience to share on this. Is there a bit of a shock from people from the international community when they come here and they are faced with the reality on how things are done here, the pace by which things are done? What kind of tips we can give to people on that sort of cultural difference when it comes to doing business in this region?
Yeah, that's a great question. Just to touch on that, because I'm checking the chat and there's quite a lot of questions evolving around like certain already existing information. So there's two things. So there's one resource, one platform that we built with the DED that I would like to highlight, which is called the Abu Dhabi SME Hub. So it's adsmehub.ae. A lot of the questions that are on the chat can be answered. a lot of the challenges that people are facing, communicating with people and connecting with them can also be solved, because not only do we have information and education, but we also have over 100 mentors that are ready to support anyone. And then we have some partners as well. So feel free to go there. Now, from that platform experience, we've learned a lot from how people interact with our mentors. So a lot of the founders, so when you want to, on the platform, when you want to engage with a mentor, you need to fill a form, send some information, all of that. And then once you do that, we will filter them out. So we see kind of the pitfalls that the founders are doing when connecting with angels, with professionals, with all of that. There is a common trend of people creating the connection when they need the help, which I don't think works really well in this part of the world. What you need to do is you need to create the connection, get advice, build relationship, all of that. So then when you need that actual support, you can reach out to that network that you have solidified through relationship building. And I think that's one core thing that people need to kind of like understand, so they can unlock the value that exists in the market. There's a lot of value in the market, but again, it's you have to put yourself in the shoe of that other person. That other person is busy, has a lot on to do, but he's willing to support. So you need to consider that and approach him. And don't disappear. Like a lot of people would come, connect once, disappear for like a month or two, then come back when they need something. That's not how relationships are built. And that's a crucial component to unlocking value within the network in the UAE and Abu Dhabi more specifically, compared to other places. It's more relevant here. So that's kind of what I want to kind of highlight for people to build that relationship, get advice, share thoughts, create your social credit. That's social credit that you can capitalize on when you need that actual support. And again, go to Abu Dhabi SME Hub, follow us, and you can get a lot of the information that you guys have been asked is there, and we continuously update it. And you can meet more than 100 professionals that are willing to pay it forward, willing to give their time to support. They don't get paid, but what they expect is, people to come up ready, prepared, do their due diligence, show up to meetings, that type of relationship building.
I like what Obadiah is putting on the chat, saying you need to be as specific as possible and the why of what you want to talk. I can see, and comments are saying and flowing, you guys are hard to find, are difficult to pin down, right? And as it refers to what I was saying before, it seems to be a very big demand for this type of support. If the tech team can please include the domain of Abu Dhabi SME Hub. I agree, Victor is a great website and has a lot of good information, and well done on these initiatives. Is a great portal that gives information and helps people navigate through a lot of these questions. Karim, going back to you, anything to add on these topics? We started opening up the question of culture and how do we go approaching, but I can see there's a lot of sort of bouncing other ideas, so I don't want to limit you to one topic. Feel free to relate to any of the things that are being brought up. A lot of questions coming from the audience. We're trying to read as many as we can and connect the topics that we're trying to discuss. But maybe Karim, from your side on these things that are being raised.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think Victor and Obadiah really covered it fairly well. It's not a short-term game, right? This isn't post 2007, 2008 financial crisis. The ecosystem has matured, investors have become, even at the family office level and also the institutional level, have gotten significantly more tactical and very, very well, educated and acclimated on investments. So, it's really important, like Victor said, to really nurture relationships properly, right? The entire region is really based on relationships, and it can be direct relationships and it can be indirect relationships, right? Like if you're one or two levels removed from somebody, begin building relationships to get there. Because I see some people in the chat say, oh, it's hard to get in front of, right? First, you have to be able to get in front of that in order to be able to build a relationship, right? Well, how do you do that? You've got to look at think about like the rings of an onion. You got to start from the outside to get to the inside, right? And it just takes time, right? And the other thing is, really just being genuine is very, very important. Being genuine, being original, having ulterior motives, I think Victor alluded to it in a much more subtle way. It's not, you really have to understand that, investors are not a financing institution, right? Well, there are some, right? And it's the VCs here, right? And again, like Obadia mentioned, they have a very different, very specific mandate. But really investing that time, investing that energy and effort, it will really go a long way.
Excellent. Ryan, back to you. I mean, it comes to my mind, is there an opportunity that we could say, right, I have a group of investors that are particularly looking at an investment opportunity in this specific type of industry, or if you can solve this specific problem? Do we think that out of this call, we can pinpoint 3 or 4 ideas that we can give to the startups and entrepreneurs? What specific problems are we trying to solve? I see one comment here, somebody saying, I solve cross-banking problems. For example, the issue of banking has been a big problem for a lot of startups and entrepreneurs through the years, and now digital banking has come around, and payment gateways. So much has happened in this field. Does anything else comes to mind, something particularly that you're interested in that might connect with any of the viewers on today's call?
Sure, absolutely. We live in some of the most exciting times. When you think about industrial revolutions, we are in that for AI. It's changing the way that we work. It's changing the way that people will work in the future. And it's not this thing that's going to happen to us maybe 10 years or 20 years from now. It's happening today. So for us, generative AI is very interesting. But I think even more so, generative AI adjacent is very interesting. What industries are going to be upset with the implementation of generative AI in the day-to-day? And what ideas can you use, well, not necessarily designing or creating your own custom LLM models, what technologies can you use that benefit from it to, instead of cutting jobs, making individuals more effective at their job, becoming a force multiplier? I feel like across almost every sector, every industry, there's opportunities to leverage this concept in a unique, novel way. So for us, this is something that we're looking at. This is something that we're leveraging internally. And we're excited to see the ideas that get sent to us daily on these topics.
Indeed, so much happening out of AI nowadays with the revolution that ChatGPT opened up, and I understand there's thousands of such portals and initiatives. Obadia, something particularly that comes to your mind that you're working on, some specific industry or something that sort of rings a bell with you?
So we're living in, as you said, some exciting times, but also, there's a lot of indifferences around the world at the moment. And it seems like everybody wants to consolidate in this wonderful place called the Middle East. So it's a chance for us over the next few years to, be on the front foot and embrace this. There's lots of new consumers, businesses, clients coming in. So the more you establish yourself now, the better name you make for yourself, the more friends you make, as Kareem says, the better you're going to take advantage and be ahead of everybody else who's going to be lagging in the next 2 or 3 years. Now, for me, I say the Middle East is very good at investing in necessities. What does that mean? That means that we have to eat, we have to travel, we have to consume energy, we have to learn new forms of languages, skills, if it's artificial intelligence. These are necessities, things that we need as human beings. Now, the things that we struggle in the region is these things called luxuries. Now, don't get me wrong, Dubai is a hub of consuming luxury goods. However, luxury services are completely different. right? There's probably a 1% of the population that consume the luxury service. The 99 other percent consume the normal day-to-day stuff. So for you as business owners, it's going back to the basics of, is my business a luxury, or is it actually something that is needed by Abu Dhabi and the UAE? And that in itself will make you realize, okay, if I'm a VC like Kareem, Victor, or Ryan, it's going to make their job a lot easier if you know that your business is needed. If it's a luxury, it means you need to burn cash to get your voice above everybody else who is a luxury. And we're seeing, I call it the 2021 companies that were labeled all over Sheikh Zayed Road disappear. Why? Because they were trying to fight in a luxurious market. I think what we're going to see in Abu Dhabi is new businesses that are here for a reason. COP28 is coming. We're seeing lots of different renewable energy solutions. Financial technologies. ADGM is now a hugely credible jurisdiction. People around the world want to set up a fund in Abu Dhabi, and GPs are happy to invest in ADGM. Founders shares from Saudi Arabia being set up in Abu Dhabi. Why? Because ADGM is credible internationally, right? So we're seeing a common story here from these different industries. Now, I'm not saying it's not possible for a social media app or to be successful, but I'm just saying Abu Dhabi is more familiar with businesses that are driven on a necessity rather than a luxury. That's the best way to leave the conversation.
That's a good point. Maybe Victor, from you, are you mostly interested in startups that are covering a necessity rather than a luxury? And brings me to the point of a lot of startups get sort of get down with the issue of feeling that many of the startups get started and they don't turn a profit 5, 6, 10 years down the line. Is this something that we see happening still? Are startups that are coming up, are companies or projects that can really turn a profit 2, 3, 4 years from getting started?
It really depends on the business. So to be honest, like what we look for is less on the profit, more on the unit economics. If the business model makes sense, right, you can turn a profit at any point in time if you stop growing. But if you're at the core of the business model that unit economics doesn't work, then you're never gonna turn a profit even at scale. So it really goes back to that business model. Now, when it comes to actual things that actually could work for the audience, again, as mentioned by Obadiah, COP28 is creating a lot of demand for sustainability, but that's kind of going to be, that's a good entry point if someone has something that can help drive CO2 reduction and all of that in any type of field. So if you look at real estate, like Aldar, they're looking for sustainability. Ittihad, they're doing the same. Everyone is looking to move that needle. So that's kind of an opportunity for people that have that to come in and engage. But to go back to, I think the core things that would work really is something that is to look at the legacy economy and build from that. If you have a startup that can help transform the legacy economy, oil and gas, real estate, industrial, manufacturing, all of that, that will be very well understood by people here and will be super a high priority for them. So just a few hints for the people considering moving.
Excellent. Well, I see a few questions. Nora is asking something specific about the existence of an aviation zone in Abu Dhabi. Yes, there is the Abu Dhabi Airport Freezone Authority that can cater for customs Freezone related matters of imports and export. Nora, so maybe to our tech team again, we have an insight page on our Setup in Abu Dhabi portal that, by the way, in collaboration with the government of Abu Dhabi, we created this portal called setupinabudabi.ae. that facilitates the entire journey for startups, entrepreneurs, or business owners that want to enter into the Abu Dhabi market, set up their company, explore the different licensing options. If our tech team can include that, and also for Nora, the specific website that talks about the different licensing opportunities and who are these jurisdictions, it will all be there. So I think we have 10 minutes left. I would like to leave these last 10 minutes, Ryan and Karim, Obadiah, and Victor. Tell us a little bit about what's the way forward for you and your institutions. What do you see yourselves working on in 2023, as we are soon to reach the half of the year? So from your side, Ryan, with Raha Beach Ventures, what is it your aim to achieve by 2023, and some of the key projects that you're working on?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. So Raha Beach Ventures is a startup studio based here in Abu Dhabi, and we cut checks between $300,000 to $500,000. In addition to cutting these checks, we also provide staff. We give you the designers, the engineers, front-end, back-end, testers, legal, sales, marketing, essentially whatever you need to take the idea that you have from concept to prototype to production to profitable. This is our bread and butter. We do it at relatively small scale. We're a little bit less than a year old, and at this point, we've launched one company. We are in the process of starting our second company, which is in the sustainability area, focusing on carbon tracking, carbon accounting, and we have some really interesting partnerships. Obviously, none of this is public yet, but we're excited to take this forward and hopefully have a huge impact in this, not only country, but in the region and beyond.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Ryan. Karim, from your side, a little bit, what's the way forward for you and the work that you're doing with Modus Capital and all the different initiatives that you're involved?
Sure. Yeah. So very similar to Ryan and Raha Beach. We're a venture builder. So we provide, again, around the same ticket size, about $250,000 to $450,000 for a company. And again, our differentiator really is human capital, right? So what we do is, again, we look for these subject matter experts, and we essentially bring the tech startup building playbook, right? Because about 70% of building a tech startup, whether you're fintech or SaaS or marketing tech, it's fairly the same, right? For us, and I just want to tie, a couple of things that Victor and Obadiah mentioned earlier. One of the things that we're really focusing on right now is the 80% of businesses that are in the UAE, being family-owned conglomerates. They're post-COVID, they began to realize that they have a lot of assets and infrastructure, and they need to actually digitize quite a bit, right? And what they see that their assets, right, and infrastructure can be leveraged as an unfair advantage to be able to essentially provide value added to their core business, or as an independent company itself that can create value for the market. And this is something that's very interesting for us with the studio venture building model that we're really looking at, right? Because you have to remember, they run like they are a big corporate, right? When you talk about startups, you talk about lean, agile, fast. It's like the anti-big corporate. So this is one of the things that we're kind of looking at and focusing on.
How many startups are you looking to get involved with or venture into business with in 2023?
So right now we have about 6 for the beginning of the year that we started on, and we'll probably have another 4 to 5 by the end of the year.
Excellent. Good. Obadiah, you have a slightly different approach to the explanations of Ryan and Karim so far, and Victor that would come as well. What's a little bit on the pipeline for you for the rest of the year? What are you going to be concentrating on?
Yeah, no. Just quickly to comment on Karim and for everybody listening, right? So Karim, I want to look at him as an example. He's managing a very big entity's money in Abu Dhabi, right? He has a huge responsibility to do a good job, because the better job that he does, the more money they will give him to put into the startup ecosystem. So the responsibility people like Ryan, Karim, and Victor have is huge, because they're the early ones to prove a good example. So when you say that you can't get hold of them, or it's a struggle to sometimes pitch them, they're trying. They are trying. You know, they have a huge responsibility. They want to do the best. And when you get the chance to work with these guys, really show that you really want to work with them. So then the life of your business and your future with them as a potential shareholder is going to be very successful, because everybody knows Abu Dhabi has a lot of sovereign wealth. And if we can find different funnels to get that, then brilliant. We're all going to be very happy. So I just wanted to say that. But from my side, I've grown a holding company. I'm very excited about some of the companies that I launched myself. Now, as I said, we've generated quite a bit of cash this year from some of those companies. We've started to invest it into local startups. We've done 2 this year. I want to do more. And how I do it as well is I try and set an example for the local families and other holding companies around that I want to do more stuff with them. So I'm trying to lead by example to say that we have the big stuff and I want to focus on the SMEs, because there's so many good people below us. We just have to look at them. So if I'm there, doing a bunch of crazy stuff on LinkedIn saying I'm doing this, this, and this, I'm bringing other families in with me, I'm doing this, it just creates more excitement and more belief for the community. But what's keeping me busy is this lovely thing called corporation tax. We are very busy with corporation tax, and I think it's the start of being a trusted financial system in the UAE. And that's something that we haven't yet got from an international perspective. And I think once we get that, you're going to see foreign direct investment from overseas VCs for the first time ever, a lot more in the UAE. Once we get this corporation tax up and running, which will give it another 12 to 18 months, people are going to look at this country as very regulated. And when people look at regulated countries, they tend to put more money into it. So I think everybody should be excited of the next 12 months of tax. Yes, you may be exposed to it, some of you SMEs. However, you need to see this as an opportunity that there'll be more international funding from this.
Very, very well put, Obadiah. I think I agree. And I think this, a bit of the painful transition that we're going through, I agree with you, is going to result in an upswing of investors and the UAE being positioned in a better scale when it comes to our financial position in the international sort of community. I like some of the comments with Karim, and you were talking about he has the challenge of doing a good job. The question is, what is to do a good job? Is it to turn a profit for the investors as he's working on? Anyhow, we'll have to discuss another 20 minutes. Maybe we'll do that off the record. And the other part was, we're talking about, you were doing 2 startups, Karim is talking about 6 startups, but we have 150 people on the call. And everybody thinks that their startup is deemed an investment and the support. So we could see where the pressure lies here in terms of the need of support versus what we're able to do. And of course, we're doing a lot and we're putting a lot out there, but we have to see how we can keep up with the pace. Victor, your final thoughts and a little bit on your future projects for 2022.
Yeah, so I just want to touch on this point, Lorenzo. So the problem today is that the ecosystem is not highly scalable, right? It's just by design everywhere in the world, and this is kind of what we're trying to solve for. So 2 things. So for us, what we're planning to do is continue on the road with the Abu Dhabi SME Hub and scale it further. With that, we are developing another platform with a customer. But on the Abu Dhabi SME Hub, just to touch on the scalability, one thing that we're trying to do is solve problems at scale. And the way we do that is by crowdsourcing data from the community, leveraging that data to then understand the problems in a very meaningful way, in a depth way, and then go with the DED to lobby and find solutions. So today we've done a business bank account is a pain in the UAE. We crowdsourced 3,700 respondent founders that gave us their experience. And because of that data, we were able to then go lobby, and now we have a solution that will unlock significant subsidies for the community. We've done the same with policies and whatever. And that's basically in our mind is trying to find a problem that exists for everyone and solve it at scale, leveraging the government. So that's on one side. And the other side that we're very excited about is, again, we need to leapfrog, right? And in order to leapfrog, we need to create more entrepreneurs and build better companies at scale. And that's something that we've been really working hard on doing through a product that we will be rolling out hopefully by the end of this year, in order to build the next 1,000, 10,000 companies and support as many people as we can. So that's kind of what we're very passionate about, is solving that problem and solving it for everyone. Because again, some of the people that are on the call are not highly scalable startups. So by default, they wouldn't get VC funding. So we need to also find solutions for camels or SMEs, right? Tech-enabled companies. Those are, are very good companies, great for the economy, not so great for VC ROI. Good for maybe as an investor, individual investor as an ROI, but from a VC perspective, the model is not designed or built for such companies. So that's basically what we're super passionate about and trying to solve.
Great, Victor. Thank you for that. Well, I think we reached the end of today's session. It's 12 o'clock, 12:01. I see a lot of networking happening already on the chat and people connecting with one another, sharing LinkedIn links and so on, which is great. I think part of what we do is also that, and I think a lot of the support that we put forward is exactly on this, sometimes of connecting people with one another, even sort of connecting startups and entrepreneurs for themselves to share a little bit of their experiences and their journeys. But once again, Ryan, Karim, Obadiah, and Victor, thank you so much for spending some time with us today and sharing a little bit of your work and your knowledge. And to all the attendees, 150 people connected throughout, we would like to thank everybody. We'll be sending a link of the entire session and a bit of a breakdown also with some of the main points. But again, Ryan, Karim, Obadiah, and Victor, thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Thank you.